What up, everybody? This is Double G for the Fight Game Podcast. John and I are here on Thanksgiving. We have a show that is playing on Thanksgiving so that if you are, trying to pass the day a little bit before you get to dinner, listening to a little bit of wrestling, podcasting, talk, and hopefully we have a pretty fun discussion. We are not having our normal AEW and NXT review show. We're gonna have to figure out what to do because we didn't want to record that show on Thanksgiving night. So instead, we did something different, which is we watched Survivor Series 1996, a little bit of a prelude to our 1997 Raw reviews. But John, going back from, we're watching WCW 92 and then you kind of fast forward 4 years to WWF 1996, you see some familiar faces.
Some familiar faces, better production, and beautiful Madison Square Garden. And it was interesting. As I'm watching this I'm watching Survivor Series 96, I'm thinking about what we're gonna have coming up in 2021. You and I with the 97 Raw reviews. I'm like, wow, I knew about the Austin Bret Hart match, of course, right, of Survivor Series, but this kicked off a lot of things that changed a lot of things for the WWF going forward. So, and we'll talk about that in detail. But this is a very historic show if you really dive deep into it, and when we will, I think people will look back and say, yeah, 1986 is things really started kicking off.
They did, and I did some research. I went back about four to 5 weeks before this show just to kind of set the tone for where we are in WWF and in wrestling as well. This is this just a few months earlier, the NWO kicks off, so that's the competitor for WWF, and they have to face what is the hottest thing in wrestling at this point. And part of the build up to this show is Bret Hart is basically a free agent, and WWF is trying to hold on to him because he is one of their top guys, but also because if they don't, he goes to the opposition. And Vince McMahon is, I wouldn't imagine he would be too happy with Bret being another WWF guy heading over to WCW to face his show. And so WCW's offer, Eric Bischoff's offer, was 3 years for up to $9 million. I think there was some movie money involved in that contract. I don't think it was all, the $3 million was all for wrestling. It was like some of it would come from the TNT Turner side as far as getting him involved in some TV movies or something. And really, Bret is just kind of going back and forth what he should do. Should he sign with WWF? Should he sign with WCW? Vince McMahon is he's holding Bret up a little bit, Bret's got the offer from WCW. He's like, Vince, I'll give you one last shot. And Vince kind of doesn't call him back on time. And then what happens is Bret signs a 20-year contract with WWF, 3 years for almost $3 million per year as an active performer. And then he was the rest of that contract was going to be with him in the office at less money. But that's how they were going to try to keep him, was just really keep him in the family. And this is the beginning, the impetus to the Montreal Screwjob is really the second Bret signs this contract, because at some point Vince figures out that it may not be a great contract for him. And then they reopened negotiations with WCW in 1 year later, basically. So if you want to see the impetus to eventually what happens with 1997 at Survivor Series, so 1 year later, it is this moment in time in 1996. So Bret signs and does a long interview on Raw about the negotiation, talking about coming back to wrestle the best guy in WWF, which I think people were thinking, oh, he's going to face Michaels. He's like, nope, Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's the best guy. And that was part of the buildup, was Bret wanting to come back and face the best guy. And so then there's the infamous story where Bischoff faxed his last offer to Bret, who was in San Jose, and then some 20 some odd years later, then Bischoff said, nope, he never sent Bret the last contract. And in fact, Dave Meltzer had a copy of it. So and Bischoff probably should have known better about that one. So also, when it comes to the main event, Sid Justice or Sid Vicious against Shawn Michaels. It's funny, back in the mid 90s, even before, Meltzer had nicknames for guys. Like Ultimate Warrior was Anabolic Warrior. He didn't call him the Ultimate Warrior. For Sid, he was not Psycho Sid. He was Cycle Sid. They've taken shots at these guys.
Man, you gotta leave Psycho Sid alone, man. Leave Sid Vicious alone.
So, originally this match was going to be Shawn Michaels versus Big Van Vader. That was the original plan, with Vader winning. But they changed plans, possibly, and I don't remember this, and it's possible that I knew this and I just didn't remember, but possibly in part that they changed plans because J.J. Dillon had left for WCW, and he knew what the plan was. So I think Vince may have gotten a little weirded out about JJ knowing, so they changed it to Psycho Sid. Or it could just be, we heard later that Michaels didn't really like working with Vader, so that could have been it as well. But I don't remember hearing about that before.
I don't remember hearing the J.J. Dillon story, but I do know about Michaels burying Vader to Vince and stuff, and he's hurt, he's reckless, etc. And even in their match at SummerSlam that year, there's some little issue within the ring where Shawn Michaels pulls one of his classic, pouting moments and frustration, and so I don't think I think he got his way and didn't want to put Vader over in that situation, and so they went with Psycho Sid.
So the Pillman gun angle happens, I think, 2 weeks before this Survivor Series show. So a very memorable Monday Night Raw for folks. And then the idea was after this show, when Bret beats Austin, he was then going to be the number one contender and face the winner of Sid and Shawn, and so I think again, they're like really teasing, Bret and Shawn even a year before, and they're not going to give in, right? They're not going to give it to them. Probably, I think the idea was actually WrestleMania, but Shawn had his thing and did not have a match at that WrestleMania. So the whole thing about this show, at least my memories, are two things. My first memory is obviously the Austin and Bret Hart match, but the second memory for me is Rocky Maivia, and I don't remember necessarily if you like what you thought about Rocky Maivia at that time, because when you watch back, he is just a corny ass babyface, but he's got charisma and he's got potential, but he's also doing really goofy stuff at the same time. Yeah. So it's not like it's very easy to kind of get into him. It was almost like overkill in a sense with the push. So I don't remember if you even know what you thought about him when you first saw him in this match.
I remember thinking it was really cool that he was Rocky Johnson's son, and his grandfather was Peter Maivia, and he kind of had the first and last name, honoring his dad and his grandfather. I didn't, of course, no one said, "Oh, this guy's going to be the biggest star in wrestling," but I liked him. I mean, I didn't hate him either. I wasn't like against his push or anything. I know a lot of people were. I just thought like, "Oh, he's a new young guy that they're building up," and he looked good, had a good size, and seemed to be a good wrestler. So I wasn't negative on him at all. I liked him. And then even when people were hating on him in early 97, they ended up turning heel. I didn't understand why they were hating on him. And that's probably one of my first experiences with like the heel are fans like truly against the babyface, and then of course the rest is history. Thank God they did that.
Well, it happens on this show. Michaels is clearly babyface, and the fans are just so behind Psycho Sid. It was kind of interesting to see.
Well, Sid was also in the babyface position, right? This is kind of like they had issues leading up to the match, some miscommunication with some super kicks and whatnot, but they were both partners, and so it was kind of split as babyface versus babyface. But I think the fans in New York are just ready for a change, and they're going for the big monster. And
I don't know, Sid was doing some pretty bad stuff here, and the crowd absolutely did not care. We're behind Sid.
Oh yeah, towards the end too, which we'll get into that. But yeah. I know this crowd too. I remember like, oh wow, and then the ending happened, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I know. It's you can't take the wrestling from you can't take out like you can have a good show, good match, but there's always going to be something in there seemingly that is going to be tasteless or leave a bad taste in your mouth or ruin what was a pretty cool show and a pretty cool match.
It was just a poorly execution of what the finish, but yeah, we'll like I said, we'll dive deep in that as well. I got a lot to say about that main event.
All right, so let's talk about the first match here. I think the first thing is Jim Ross is technically a heel, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah, because in September he did the thing where he was the grumpy being fired from Vince. He's pissed off at the WWF, and now he's bringing back Razor Ramon and Diesel. But then he ended up bringing back Rick Bogner as Razor Ramon and Glenn Jacobs as Diesel, which left me completely confused. And even though I thought Glenn Jacobs as Diesel looked pretty cool. I saw he's looked really cool with that, but it was just stupid because it just was. But as a heel thing, I guess you can understand why it would draw heat. But and Rick Bogner, he used to be Big Titan in FMW. Had a lot of potential when he was in FMW. He was jacked and thick and a lot of agility for his size. But I don't think he ever, maybe because he had because of the gimmick, he just didn't really reach his potential. I think it was just death gimmicks for both those guys, but luckily Glenn Jacobs was able to get past two death gimmicks with the Isaac Yankem gimmick and fake Diesel to finally finding a moneymaker with Kane.
All right, so this match is it's the opener, it's the first elimination Survivor Series style match. You have Owen Hart and the British Bulldog tag teaming with the New Rockers. So Marty Jannetty and Al Snow as Leif Cassidy. What a weird name for Al Snow.
Yeah, it's just like a generic kind of goofy.
Well, what it is it's
Leif was like an old.
Well, there was a young actor who all the girls loved. His name was Leif Garrett.
Oh yeah.
And then David Cassidy, and he just put the two names together. but I get it if it's like for like a heartthrobby kind of character. But Al Snow was not like a heartthrobby kind of character. I always thought that name was so weird for him.
And they're supposed to be like dorky rockers, right? They're supposed to be kind of like just goofballs. It just didn't work at all, I
think Marty gets hurt in this match.
He does. Looks like he hurt his knee or foot or something like that. It must be maybe an ankle because if his knee, he'd be down, wouldn't do anything. But looks like he was gutting it out, and he still finished it. But God, it looked pretty tough to watch. And I don't know if it really messed up. If that was how it was going to happen, where he was going to lose there, or was he going to lose later, or whatever the orders of elimination was. I don't know if that because of his injury, he had to go out first. So it seemed like things got rough in that match early on, especially during the Marty Jannetty segment.
So they face Furnace and LaFawn in their. I don't know if I'm assuming they'd been on TV.
No, this was their debut. They debuted on pay-per-view.
So because they kept saying Madison Square Garden debut.
I don't think they were on TV unless they were on a different syndicated show. Because I remember them just all of a sudden doing the card and they're like and debuting Phil LaFawn and Doug Furnas, and I was like, holy cow, they got them, and so yeah, I believe this was their in-ring WWF debut, unless it was, like I said, this was on syndication. I mean, I'm sure someone will correct us on that, but it was okay. It was an okay debut. It wasn't a home run.
And also the Godwins, so you have to have the wacky tag team there as on the babyface side. And what's funny is we see the Godwins, and we're going back to watching 92 WCW, and we're watching Tex Slashinger and Shanghai Pierce, and just fast forward 4 years.
Yeah, we saw the start of their team, and now we're seeing kind of towards the ends of their run as they start getting pushed aside around this time.
Okay, so we'll just go through the falls pretty quickly. Marty Jannetty loses to the slop drop, so that gives the baby faces the 4-on-3 advantage. Immediately, Owen hits his spinning wheel kick. I don't remember which one he hit it on.
On Phineas, right after the slop drop.
And so immediately back to 3-on-3. Al Snow gets like reverse suplexed off the middle rope, and so he loses, and so then the Bulldog power slams Henry, and he gets a pin, and then this is where I thought the match got really interesting because LaFawn and Furnas, obviously, it's their debut. They're the baby faces. They're trying to do lots and lots of stuff. I don't know if Bulldog just wasn't on the same page with them, or if he purposely was like, I'm not doing all this shit. But it got a little funky with the Bulldog there. And then he gets rolled up. So babyfaces have the advantage. And then Furnas pins Owen with a German suplex, basically, off of, I think Owen hit the post or something, and he Germaned him and he beat him.
Yeah.
But yeah. I was just I liked Furnas and LaFawn because it was different, but it was almost like I would say that Owen was probably the best guy in the whole match. I thought he was great, but they were trying to do stuff that maybe wasn't quite how you would do a WWF style match at that point.
It was supposed to be a showcase, and early on in the match, Doug Furnas is doing a spot with Davey Boy Smith, and he goes for that big. Doug Furnas has a beautiful drop kick where he just floats in the air because those big thighs he has. He floats in the air in those calves, and he just hits that drop kick. There's a really cool backflip off of it. And I don't know if Davey maybe thought they were going to do, it was a duck to clothesline, then the drop kick, but it looked like it was just a duck to clothesline and then the drop kick, but I don't think they got the timing off, and Furnas just gets in the air and just crashes, and it just looked really bad then. And then, but I love Doug Furnas and Dan Crawford was, I knew him as in All Japan, and they had classic matches there, and they're a great team. But showing up in WWF in 1996, they've been beaten up and broken down, a lot of the physical style of Japanese wrestling, and plus, I mean, WWF at the time, and it still is a personality promotion, right? And those guys really didn't have it. They had great physical skills and great wrestling ability, and Furnas can do some great stuff power-wise, and LaFawn was a technician, but they should have been heels, really. And I tweeted out today where I was talking to great Robert Silver about it, Jim Cornette would have been a great mouthpiece for him, almost like a new version of the Midnight Express, technically. He can do the talking and get the heat, and they can do the wrestling, but they wanted to come out as babyfaces, and they did have one really great match in their run. That was with Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith. I think we'll see that sometime in early '97 when we start reviewing those shows. But
that's what I was wondering, because even though they didn't gel with Davey like that, you have those guys with Davey and Owen. I would have imagined that would have been a really good match.
Yeah, they had a really good match with them, but it just didn't really click because, Furnas and LaFawn never really clicked with the WWE audience. And, what should have been classic tag team matches for the WWF at the time, they just never got the momentum. So, and then, of course, the big car accident, I think later on that year, 97, with Sid and Furnas LaFawn. And I think LaFawn got hurt enough to where he never returned. And then, Furnas, I think, went back to, did some of the ECW and whatnot. So, just wasn't working out. I think they probably should have stayed in All Japan. I don't know what was going on there with contract wise, but probably fit their style. And WCW, they probably would have been another team in the log of teams they had in 96. They had so much people on that roster, but they could have had a great match with Steiners and I don't know, Face of the Fear probably could have been a good match. They could have had good Harlem Heat. They could have had good matches with, so it probably would have been beneficial they signed with WCW.
So the next match, and interesting layout and timing of this match, because it was one of the main events. At least I had assumed it was one of the main events. But second match on the card, Mankind versus The Undertaker with Paul Bearer above in a cage. And if The Undertaker wins the match, he gets a chance to have Paul Bearer inside the cage with him. And so that is the stip. These guys had a feud year in, probably from 96 all the way through 98, right? Like they had tons and tons of matches over those 3 years.
Yeah, and plus this feud was, as Undertaker versus Mankind is really coming to the end here. And what do you think of this match? I want to get your thoughts on it. I thought they were working hard, but I think I was shocked. Beyond the entrances, of course, the Undertaker, the Madison Square Garden crowd was pretty just tired or wasn't really reacting too much. And I'm guessing maybe because this feud was at an end and they already seen. I think was this the year they had they had the Boiler Room match already, right? Everything I think so. SummerSlam, and then they've done stuff already. So I think they've kind of already grown tired of this feud. I think they just thought maybe Undertaker's just going to win it, but then at the end they don't even give him the big stip. That was a big.
That was pretty
big
frustrating.
Switch. Yeah, exactly.
I thought the Undertaker. He was trying some stuff. He was trying pretty hard. I thought Foley was okay. I thought the psychology was a little weird in some instances. Like Mankind has the little gimmick thing, and he's not even trying to hide it. He's just like using it all out in the open. The referee's got to pretend like Mankind is really able to shield it kind of behind him, but I don't know. I thought that they could have done a little bit better job of that, because I think the heat is with him using it in a way that is really hiding it from the ref. But when the people saw it in full, like just in full sight, they're like, well, if the ref doesn't care, then why do we care? Mm-hmm. And so I was frustrated with that. I was also kind of frustrated with the finish, because Mankind has the upper hand. He's got him in the corner and he's using the gimmick, and all Undertaker does is get underneath him and sets him up for the tombstone and then pins him. And so it's kind of like there was no real setup for the finish either. It just kind of came out of the blue. So work-wise, I thought Undertaker worked pretty hard. Mankind was fine, but just the psychology and the layout of the match I thought was pretty lacking for those guys, at least.
Yeah, Mankind, he was taking some big bumps in the match. He was trying to get the crowd going and do
the one against the rail. He
got the rail, or even the forward roll off the apron and just crashed right on the floor. It was just a big old gross thud. And yeah, the finish just kind of came out of nowhere. It's almost like they said, "Screw it," like this is take it home. And I think they could have did better work with the gimmick, is like the old pencil gimmick where he's jabbing in the throat and stuff. And I don't think Mankind did a bad job of it. I just think this crowd was just tired of this program, and then the big payoff was supposed to be, once Undertaker wins, he gets to have like 5 minutes or gets his hands on Paul Bearer, and then Paul Bearer gets out of it, and it's like, well, we don't want to see any more of this. Like, just let Undertaker kick his ass and be done with it. And
I mean, he could have at least taken one bump before the Executioner comes out, right? At least if you're the fan, you're like, okay, I didn't get all of it, but at least I got something.
Yeah, like someone big punch in the corner or something. Yeah, and the Executioner come out, which is, Terry Bam Bam Gordy under a hood.
He looked a little small to me.
He looks smaller, and unfortunately, Terry, had his troubles with the 2 overdoses and nearly dying twice, and so ever since then he was never really the same, and he came back to the United States with ECW in like August of 96, and had a really great match with Raven to a point where people were like, man, he's back. Terry Gordy's back to his old self, but it was really the performance of Scott Levy, Raven, that really made that match and made Terry Gordy look like his old self again. So that match there, and Raven got Terry Gordy signed to the WWF with that performance. So
and then they put him in a full bodysuit in a match.
And because I guess Vince McMahon's like, well, what can we do with this guy? Just put him in a mask, and then it was just for like one match, really, because I think they have a pay-per-view match at the next pay-per-view between Undertaker and the Executioner. And yeah, I never forget when he showed up as that. I was like, oh man, that's just, how can you just Terry Gordy, man? One of my favorite teams, Terry Gordy and Bam Bam, it's Dr. Death Steve Williams. I'm like, how can you do this guy, But, hey, he was holding on to, he's so young too when he passed away. Wasn't he like 40 something years old? And, this is a sad way. It was hard to see him as that gimmick.
All right, the next match, they start with an interview, and you get to hear Hunter Hearst Helmsley with his horrendous accent.
Man, it's been a while. I forgot about that.
Really bad. Mm-hmm. Like, man, he did that for a little while too.
Yep.
And then, so they do the interview, and then Sunny comes out for whatever reason to announce the match. I think they just need to get her on the show. Plus, you have Sable, who is out there as well, so she could be the butt of the jokes for Sunny. And so the match was Crush, Jerry the King Lawler, Triple H, and Goldust, who we're watching on 92 WCW be like one of the greatest up-and-coming baby faces you could ever see, and he's now here. He's a completely different character. Mm-hmm. And then you have Mark Merrow, who we watched as Johnny B. Bad. Mark Merrow comes out with his wife, Sable. Barry Windham, who we watch as Barry Windham, and now he comes out as the Stalker, though Jim Ross makes it very clear to use his name because the Stalker is a terrible name.
Yeah.
And then young Rocky Maivia, but young Rocky Maivia wasn't the thing that popped the crowd. It was they needed a fourth guy, and the guy that they chose for their fourth guy, who was a surprise. They actually have two surprises on this show when it came to these elimination matches. A rotund Jake the Snake Roberts, who, we were watching him in 92 and we're saying, he's still got psychology, but it's a smoke and mirrors thing because he's not really moving well. Like, this is a different level of not moving well, Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yeah. What an interesting group of people, right? What made me sad to see is the Stalker Barry Windham. I mean, Barry Windham, one of my favorites.
Bad mustache and camel.
Well, he was in transition to the Blackjack Mulligan gimmick with Bradshaw, right? In '97 they formed a tag team, the Blackjack, just like Blackjack Mulligan and Barry Windham's dad. So he was in transition. Did he lose his gear because he's wearing like just some generic WWF T-shirt?
Yeah.
And I guess he must have had those, but those camouflage pants were kind of in style, not in style, but they were around in 1996. I remember, and he kind of had like, did he have boots on or did he have shoes? Like, he just looked awkward and he looked heavier, and he had a bad wheel in '94, got injured, and that was never really the same since then. So it's just kind of heartbreaking to see that. And Jake, I remember Jake because he had that feud with Jerry Lawler, but they played off these alcohol abuse that he had with Jerry Lawler, which is crazy to think about now.
Which Chris Jericho would do with CM Punk.
Yeah.
Again, 20 years later or whatever.
Yeah. So this was definitely an interesting matchup. Sunny coming out was just getting Sunny out there, like you said. The most downloaded woman in AOL. I never forget when they dropped out. Oh yeah, I remember that. She looked great though. God, man, she's just was a stunner back then. And
well, they had split up the Body Donnas at that point, right?
Yeah. So she was just kind of doing her own thing and doing segments just to get her on TV, and just seeing her too come out, and you're thinking like, wow, man, this girl had the whole world in her hands, and she screws it all up. But yeah, she was so beautiful and had so much charisma.
So going over the eliminations here, so Jake gets his revenge on Jerry the King Lawler, pins him with a DDT. Dustin gets his revenge from 1992. hits the curtain call on old Barry Windham.
Hell yeah, I love the curtain call finish.
Mark Marrow beats Triple H with a moonsault. And he loses to Crush, but we're not sure why, because they still haven't shown us the finish of how he lost to Crush. It just,
was he a count out?
No,
he missed the dive?
Crush pinned him, but they just showed the third count, and then they rolled Marrow out of the ring.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was confused by that, too. And by the way, this is, for people that don't know, this is Crush, Criminal Crush. Mm-hmm. When he has this weird island tattoo on top of his head and dreadlocks. And, I mean, I don't know if you took the damn fake tattoo off his head, I think he actually looked pretty cool. But yeah, I what a bump that Mark Merrill took on the outside. That missed dive. I mean, Jesus.
My God.
I mean, he hit it clean, like as perfectly be. But if he would have slipped up just a little bit, it would have been very dangerous for him.
So the Crush heart punch puts Jake out, pins Jake with the heart punch.
Dude, hitting an old man with a heart punch.
I know.
That's not a bad taste, too.
And so now you got young Rocky Maivia. It's 1-on-2. He's got to go against Crush and Goldust. Crush sets Rocky up for the heart punch as well. Goldust is holding him. Rock moves out of the way. He hits Goldust. Then he hits a running high cross on Crush to pin him. And then his finisher at this point, I would not have remembered this if you had asked me. I would have probably had to go through like 45 moves before I got to this. His finisher, when he first started, is a running shoulder breaker. And
yeah. I forgot about that too. It looked beautiful though. It was a perfectly executed shoulder breaker. This is good classic booking of getting the new Bayface over, against the odds, and I thought they did a good job with it. So
this was a match of secretly tall guys. Like Crush he's a big dude. He's always been portrayed as a big dude. But
he is big.
Yeah, no, he is. But you had guys who were just as tall or taller than him who aren't necessarily portrayed as big dudes. Triple H, who's like 6'2.5", 6'3". Goldust is like 6'5". Barry Windham is like 6'5". Rock is like 6'4". Jake is like 6'4". Just tons of secretly tall guys in this match. Just kind of not doesn't mean anything, but I just all these tall dudes in this match. I'm like, man, Mark Marrow and Jerry Lawler look like midgets in this match, and they're not portrayed as small guys.
I don't think Mark Marrow's that small. I think he might be 5'11", right? I mean, I don't know. Well, back in the day we actually had men wrestling, so and it was a little different back then. But yeah. Now you point out that everyone's so tall and big, and
it's a different WWE. It's a different pro wrestling.
Different pro wrestling and this was definitely a transition too. If you look around and The Rock, it's they're making a statement, going new faces, new people.
He did a really poor Rocky Johnson shuffle though.
Yeah, he's God, but God bless him. He fought through
it. He did a nice drop kick though. I mean, he kind of did the one where you jump off of one leg, and he didn't like do the leap off of the two legs, but he tried to do the Rocky Johnson drop kick.
Yeah, I guess Rocky. He did that the running up drop kick kind of. Yeah, you're right. Leave off one leg and do like a little spin.
All right, so the best match of the night, at least as far as I'm concerned, was Austin and Hitman, and they did maybe it was like a 2-minute or 3-minute video package of these guys, and I was like, oh my God, like I want to pay for this match like right now all over again.
Yeah.
Like just based off of this video package, I want to give maybe not give WWE, maybe give Austin and Bret Hart, $25 each or something. Great video package. Like I said, the whole Bret thing with him coming back, and Austin is just raising hell, with everybody, and he's making his name. So Bret does a promo before the match, and he says, he's not greedy for money. He's greedy for respect. So you need to respect him, Stone Cold Steve Austin. So this was a match that was really like the match that puts Austin at the main event level, at least as far as I can remember, because you know his character's growing. He's in segments, but he's still kind of just right underneath that top level, and this match puts him pretty much right at that top level. Depending on what you think of his 97. I know he was at the Intercontinental Championship level for most of that 97, but you know, if you're watching at this time, you go, okay, like I know who's next. Like I know who's going to be one of the guys because of how good this match was. And, you know, a lot of it is Brett, but a lot of it is Austin just right with him, you know, for everything pretty much.
Yeah, you know, I think with Austin, I think, you know, even after the King of the Ring win and the Austin 316, that thing started getting some steam. I think this is the match here that not only was his character given over, but this is a guy that can do it in the main event level, right, in the ring and deliver. And, you know, it's unfortunate that this match doesn't get remembered as much as, of course, their classic at WrestleMania. But, God, man, rewatching this match, what a freaking great match this was. And I feel bad at myself. I haven't gone back and watched this. This is a match I should watch all the time because it had everything. It had good wrestling. It had two guys that wanted to fight each other and get at each other. It had, you know, not only the big moves, but it had great brawling and it just a lot of back and forth and momentum changes throughout the match and just high drama. And this match was freaking awesome. And, you know, every time I think, like I said, every time I think of Austin and Brett, I think of WrestleMania. But gosh, you know, now this reminded me that, hey, I'm not only going to think about that match, but I'm going to think about this match too. And this is definitely one I want to revisit again in the near future.
Yeah, a couple things that I think stood out to me was, you know, this is still a year before Austin breaks his neck, so he's a different wrestler. He's not only the brawling Austin that we eventually remember, but he's doing more stuff in this match. He's doing, you know, more wrestling style. That's not exactly his Stunning Steve style, but you know, it is closer to that than you would remember him when he's on his big run. And I would still say the WrestleMania match is better.
Oh yeah.
You know, and maybe even a good deal amount better, but this match is, you know, for it, a lot of it being Austin, you know, kicking away and punching away at Brett and just trying to wear him out, and then Brett, you know, trying to do the same. Like they're kind of, I don't know if this was necessarily purposely done, but Brett, or maybe it's JR, is talking about submission moves. And so I don't like, because, you know, they were not supposed to face each other at WrestleMania. It was supposed to be Brett and Shawn, and it was going to be Steve Austin and the British Bulldog.
Yeah.
Those were going to be the matches, but it's almost like JR is like setting up the possibility that these guys were going to come back in like a submission match or something, you know, later down the line, because he's mentioning, you know, the moves, the submission moves that they're doing. They're wearing each other out. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, at the time too, like Steve, you know, of course Bret Hart has a sharpshooter submission, right? But Austin, he was just starting to use a stunner as his finisher for like the last few months. But before that, remember, he had the $1 Million Dream as a finisher because he was the ringmaster and he was managed by Ted DiBiase. He even uses that here. Of course, it leads to the finish. So you know, he's setting that up. You know, Jim Ross told a great story. Jim Ross, you know, drops his whole heel persona and just calls it the best ability because he really wants to get Steve Austin over. That's the guy, right? And like I said, I thought this match was great. And like, I want to get focused on the brawling aspect of the match. And like, what nowadays and what we get now in our modern wrestling is like, people set up furniture and use it, right? Like here, it was used because it was available to them, right? You know what I mean? Like, threw the guy on the table, put him on the table, you know, just brawling over. It wasn't like, okay, I'm gonna put the chair, I'm gonna stack it up, I'm gonna do this thing. It's just like keep going and at a rapid pace and keep the intensity up. And if there's something there to use it, use it. If it's the table's there, I'm gonna put him on it. I'm gonna go off the elbow off it and just hit him in it with it while he's on it. Like, just more believable. And I just loved this whole. I could go on and on about this match and I want to watch it again. That's how much I love it. And
so the finish is pretty much a repeat of the WrestleMania 8 finish between Bret Hart and Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper puts Bret in a sleeper. Bret walks his feet up the turnbuckle and then pushes back. And then as Piper has the hold in, Piper falls on his back, and Bret kind of bridges his feet over to pin Piper. And that's exactly what he does here. Austin has the $1 Million Dream on, and Bret climbs up the turnbuckle, kicks it off, and Austin's shoulders are covering the mat, and that's how he wins the match. Austin, the look on his face of like, you know, you won the match, but you know, I was beating your ass, and you know, I'm right with you. I thought that was awesome. Just that. I mean, he's not even doing anything. It's just a certain look. It's just a way that he leaves the ring where it's like, okay, like you're just like, he's gonna be next.
Yeah, and you know, it was a good finish for this match because it still protected Austin, and at the end of the day, like, you know, Austin gave Bret everything and more, right? And he made a mistake, and Bret, the veteran, as he should, right, took advantage of it and capitalized on the mistake. And, you know, he won by the skin of his teeth. So it was just brilliant all around. This is, you know, just perfect booking.
There was a moment in this match where Austin comes back, and it was about as close to a babyface comeback as you could get, and the crowd responded, and he had a look in his eyes, and I was like, okay, that's a really cool foreshadowing for where we were going to go. You know, I don't remember exactly when he kind of turns that quasi babyface, but you know, he responded, and that crowd responded when he did a little comeback on Bret. So I thought that was cool too.
Yeah, I know for sure Royal Rumble 97's when the fans are just going ape shit for him in the Rumble. So I think that's what I mean. I will rewatch these Raws 97, and I'll take
technically he's still a heel because I remember he cheated to win that match.
Oh no, he was, but the crowd is like, they love, okay, yeah, we're getting behind him, and you know, that's when they did. And thank God, you know, Vince back then was on his game, and he heard it and went with it.
All right, last couple matches here. You mentioned Diesel and Razor earlier. This
match, and there's a good reason why, because what the finish was played out. But yeah,
all I could think of was there were guys in this match who must have been, when they saw the booking sheet, they must have been like, son of a, like, why am I in this match? Because you have Farouk, who they're pushing. In 1996, he's, you know, the Nation of Domination thing is getting kicked off. You have Big Van Vader, who we already talked about, who was supposed to originally win the title on this show. Mm-hmm. Yoko is definitely past his prime, and he's not really treated as special anymore. But Flash Funk debuts, and he, you know, it's kind of that parallel to 92, because we're going to see him very soon in WCW. But the pop, well, actually, wasn't even a great pop. But again, another surprise performer here. So it's Farouk, Diesel, Razor, and Big Van Vader against Yokozuna, Savio Vega, Flash Funk, who Jim Cornette swears he's never seen before, and Superfly Jimmy Snuka making his comeback after being inducted into the Hall of Fame the night before. And if you thought Snuka was old at WrestleMania against The Undertaker, no, he's much older here. And, you know, I mean, the crowd enjoys him, but I don't think they take him too seriously at this point. But Vince takes him seriously. Man, Vince is going nuts for the Superfly. I thought the only good, like, the match wasn't bad. It was really the finish because they had to get out of there and they didn't have a great plan of getting out of there. But I thought the highlight of the whole thing was Ross and Cornette just going back and forth.
Yeah.
Like, I think Ross was saying how, you know, if he was the manager of Deezer and Razor, they'd be better off than where they were. And then he said, I forgot, was it Yokozuna or no, it was Vader. He was like, yeah, you know, if I was managing Van Vader, and Cornette's like, you couldn't even manage a Wendy's. And he said, I could if it was in your neighborhood or something, because Cornette's just a gigantic Wendy's fan, meaning that Cornette would eat there all day. So I thought their back and forth was really funny because it allowed Jim Ross to kind of get in on the jokes and get in on the digs. And when he was the announcer, he was always the butt of the jokes normally, but here he was heel Jim Ross, so he was getting off his jokes as well.
It wasn't They did a transition from Sonny to Jim Cornette, and he took a shot at Sonny, and I think Sonny said something. So yeah, it was good. I mean, yeah, that was the highlight. Cornette and Jim Ross highlight, like when he said, "Jim Ross, I'm not even a manager," you know. But yeah, just another a sad display. The misfire of the Flash Funk gimmick for Too Cold Scorpio. Yokozuna looked like he was well over almost 600 pounds, and sad to see him, the way he was. And I think he even hurts Big Van Vader in this match when he does him the old rock bottom Uranagi slam. I think Vader hurts his shoulder on it, and the match just breaks down, and it's you'll go with the results, but it's like they're doing the matches and they have no way to get out of it. So
yeah, we only have two falls. So Savio gets jackknife power bombed, and so he's out of the match. Diesel beats him, and then we get a Superfly splash on Razor, and Razor's out. And so we're stuck at 3-on-3, and then they just all start fighting each other, and the referee calls for the match, and they get double DQ'd.
Savio gets his heat back by coming out with a chair, and he cracks Diesel with a really stiff chair shot to the back. I guess with that back, I guess he could take it, no problem. And he just starts hammering with the chair shots, and it they say everyone's disqualified, and the fans go poop. They're just so upset.
This was a really bad thing that they would do from time to time at Survivor Series matches, or even like sometimes on on big cards they would have like a 6-man or an 8-man, and then it was like 2 minutes in and like everyone just gets disqualified because they need to move on. They're running out low on time.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so Shawn Michaels and Sid, Psycho Sid. I thought this was a pretty fun match. You're going to get stuff that you normally get with Sid, like him, putting his arms down by his side while getting punched in the face. His own like sort of sidewinder punches. You never really see a human being throw punches the way that Sid does. But other than that, I thought he was pretty darn good in this match, and I know a lot of it is because of Michaels. But Sid, when you talk about Sid, just the highest of the high ceilings of potential when he's in WCW or in NWA with the Skyscrapers. Vince sees so much potential in him as like the next Hogan. He signs him and puts him in the main event at WrestleMania 8, and then fails the steroid test. Back in WCW, they put him right back in the main event. He's supposed to be in the match with Big Van Vader at Starrcade, but then the thing with Arn happens, and so Ric Flair gets put back in that spot. And so Sid is just, his career up until 1996 was just like so much potential, never fulfilled it, often his own worst enemy, sabotaged his own stuff. And here was like the one match where if you want to look back and say, okay, this is the Sid that I always thought was going to be the guy, this is probably that match. I'm trying to think of another match that he had where he really reached his potential like he did in this match.
No, you're right. This is his best performance. I thought he did a good job himself too. I know a lot of it's Shawn, of course. Shawn really bumping around for him, making him look great. Sid, he had it all. He just didn't have the brain, to really reach his potential, really take advantage of what he was given. He was given an opportunity from the start, and he just was. I don't think he was ever a wrestling fan, and he just didn't take it serious. Like I say, sabotaged his career. There are times where he would, fake injuries and play softball. That's why he was. It's called softball Sid Vicious or softball Sid, and that's why they didn't really go with him for a long time as champion after he won it here. But God, what a connection this guy has to the crowd. When he comes out, like, he is like connecting with everyone, right? His looks, like he looks around the building, he's looking at everyone, and people see him, and they're connecting. That cool fist pump with people that when he walks in, he's just like boom, 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 like that pump you up, man. If I was like there and I got fist pump from Sid, you had probably one of the best looks ever in pro wrestling history. Just like if you want to manufacture like just a perfect specimen for pro wrestling, it would be him. And even in the ring, he wasn't Luthez, but he knew what he could do, and he did it really well. Like, he knew how to connect. He looked at the crowd all the time. He constantly kept him engaged in the match. I would say he's a pretty decent worker. I know people will probably laugh. All the experts probably laugh at me saying that, but you know what? A good worker to me is who can keep the crowd interested in what they're doing out there. And like, just like when you remember, he would grab the power bomb and he'd look around, right? And wait till the people start rumbling and roaring, and then he'd do it. A lot of nowadays people just do power bomb and they're often down. They're often a 2 count, but or even sometimes even less than that. So he is, he's great in his own way, and I just wish he had the head on his shoulders to really take advantage of what he was given. And he could have been a major superstar. He could have been the next Hogan if he would have, because he can cut a good promo. He can convince you. Still think he's better as a heel, and I love this. I know it's kind of a rib on him, the Psycho Sid thing, because of Scissors and Arn Anderson, but that theme music he has with the Psycho sound and him coming out, like, it's just oh man, it gave me goosebumps. And this is a really good performance. The finish was kind of funky, and then we'll go over that, not just what they did, but the execution of it. But yeah, go through the match and we'll talk about that.
All right, so what happens is Sid grabs a video camera, and he's about to hit Shawn Michaels with it. The ref is down it, right?
No, there's no ref up here. It was so odd because why would he has the advantage in this match. And before that, let's just talk about Shawn was like getting booed, and he's like, all of a sudden he's like saying fuck you to the crowd and all that stuff, like just freaking out. Like, but anyways, but he just grabs, like, Sid just grabs the camera, but there's no rhyme or reason. Like, he was already in control, which I don't understand why he would just do that, but they did the thing what they did.
And so he's teasing that he's going to hit Shawn, and Jose Lothario is on the apron, like, yelling at the ref, like, dude, like, this guy's got a camera. And then Sid just turns around and bops Jose with it. And what they tease is that he's given this old man a heart attack. And so eventually Shawn goes out to check on him. And I don't know what Sid grabbed, but he grabbed something, and then he hits Shawn on the back, throws Shawn in the ring. And is it powerbomb finish?
Yes.
Powerbomb finish, and he wins the match. And so the story, or Shawn's out in this match for losing the title, is that he cared way more about his trainer than he did about losing that championship. So that's Shawn's out. And yeah, okay, that's fine. Like, what they're setting up is they're setting up Shawn to win the belt back at the Alamo Dome at Royal Rumble, because that's Shawn's hometown in San Antonio. And so, that whole story, like, makes a whole lot of sense to me, especially because you got to sell those tickets at that Alamo Dome for that Royal Rumble. So how are you going to sell it? Well, this babyface is going to come back and beat this mean guy. The problem is that at that point, Sid might have been a little bit more the fan favorite when it happened. But I want to rewatch the Royal Rumble because I don't really remember the crowd reaction to that match.
Well, it came on last after the Rumble, right? I'm pretty sure that was the last match, and I think crowd was kind of tired then too. And I mean, Shawn got a good reaction, but it wasn't as big as it wasn't as good of a match, I think, as this one. This one, the finish was funky. Like I said, it just out of the blue, he takes the camera and he smashes Jose Lothario in the chest, and now he's having a heart attack. Shawn jumps out, is concerned. Now Sid, goes to grab the camera to hit Sean, but I don't know if the referee told him or someone else told him, like, dude, the ref's not out yet. So they had to quickly go back in the ring, and they had to do the ref bump, and they don't even like set it up. They just like get in position in the corner, do the Irish Rip, and then the reversal, and then Dave or Earl Hebner gets taken out, right? So it was just like poorly executed there. I think they should have done something more simpler, like they could have had the same story. Maybe there is a big ref bump that causes all three of them to kind of go crashing, or there's a ref bump but the baby faces go crashing out, and Sid goes to clothesline Sean ducks, but unfortunately Jose Lothario is behind Sean, and so he gets hit with the clothesline in the chest, and Sid's like, oh my god, I can't believe I just did that, right? I just can't believe, he's hurt, and everyone's kind of concerned. But Jose Lothario, he's like, it doesn't have to be like heart attack, but he could say, just finish the match, Sean. It's more of like a Rocky moment with, Rocky 3 and Coach, and just saying, I'll be okay, finish the match. He gets carted off. Now Sean is like, ever since then, now Sid has the advantage, and Sean doesn't look right. And finally, Sid just wins clean. Let him win clean as a babyface and celebrate. And, because the crowd would want to cheer him anyways, right? I kind of would have pulled audible there, just have him win clean without the camera stuff. And then you do the heel turn if you're going to do it the next night in Raw. And this is how I would book it, because this is what I was thinking out when I was watching it. I would have, because the story of the match is really Sid winning the championship, right? Should be the biggest story. But they open up the show with an interview with Shawn Michaels to get Jose Lothario's update and everything. And out comes Sid, because this is Sid's moment, right? And now they're still concerned with Sean and still concerned with Jose Lothario. They're disrespecting him. And there's a little disagreement there. And finally, Sid just goes psycho, quote unquote, on Sean. And just like how he turned heel on Sean after the WrestleMania 95 match with Sean and Diesel, the multiple power bombs again and destroy Sean. And that's when you turn him heel right there, I think. But that's just me kind of booking as I was watching this. Because I thought the execution of the whole camera was just so poorly done, because it just looked stupid, because he was complete control. Now, I don't know if they messed up something and Sid messed up something and went to that too early, but it just looks stupid. Why would this guy, he's just not destroying Sean, but every time Sean would get an advantage, he would counter it, and Sean would fight from behind, and just didn't make sense to me.
Overall, I would say I enjoyed the show. I was also just so intrigued at the mix of personalities on this show.
It was definitely a year in transition. It was 96.
Definitely transitional year, because you got the old guys, like we said, like Jake, Barry Windham, and then you got the young guys like Rock and Austin and Triple H who are on their rise. But yeah, and then you got some outliers, folks that some people don't even remember, like LaFons and Furnace. And Flash Funk coming back. So yeah, it was such an interesting thing, but it did get me excited for the 97 Raws that we're going to start talking about.
And look at this, look at this show here. You have Steve Austin having this great performance against Brett, which solidifies his main event status for the future, right? Or he's going to be a major player in the future in their plans. You have Rocky Maivia, who's debuting, who they feel like can be a major player for them, right? And then you have Sean, not because they planned this way, but the crowd going with Sid and turning on Sean kind of started the whole Sean turning heel stuff, right? We'll start that. So it kind of just like I said, Survivor Series kicked off a lot of stuff for the future and future business that ended up, becoming record business for them.
So the next show has Brett against Sid in the main event. Brett gets a chance to win the title. He does not win the title, because we know what's coming at Royal Rumble. But yeah, so that's where we go. And I don't plan on. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that December pay per view. Actually, I don't. Maybe I should kind of take a look at it before we start our 96 Raws or 97 Raws.
Yeah, I don't remember that either. So maybe I'll just take a look at it myself too. I did watch a little bit of the Raw. Like I want to know what they're gonna followed up with on Raw. Like one of the matches, the first match they had was like a brawl between Steve Austin and Mankind. It was supposed to be Steve Austin versus Vader, which was interesting booking, but of course Vader was hurt in that match. With,
it was supposed to be like a they said it on the show, Austin and Vader, and like some kind of stipulation.
Maybe it was a number of contenders, or I don't know, some kind of match. Yeah, but him and Mankind have a nice little brawl around the ring and stuff, and of course, those two guys' history. Just like a lot of cool like look into the future stuff.